Okay, starting a couple minutes early, regular city council meeting, May 25th. If anybody shows up and have missed the roll call or the prayer, we can let them watch the recording. We are lacking Logan, who said he wasn't going to be here. Do we know if what Cheryl is? We don't know that she's missing, but she is currently. Well, we have quorum, so we're good to go. We will have a prayer or a thought by Robert Turk, followed by the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads before thee at this time to give thee thanks for the blessings that we receive at thy hand and for the wonderful place we have to call home. We ask a special blessing upon this group this evening, that we might be able to listen and make good decisions. We ask a blessing also upon this community, that the water, the rain that we need may begin to fall, and that we may be able to recover a little from the drought, and that the animals and that the plants will be able to recover, and that this country will be able to blossom, and that we'll be able to flourish here. We're grateful for all that was done for us, and for the opportunity we have to serve in this part of the country. And we ask a blessing upon all of us at this time, and these things we do in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so council had occasion to review the minutes and agenda. Let's check and see.
Which one of you is that, huh?
The reporters are getting that.
We had some guests that the car alarm kept going off all night long at our rental because the turkeys.
That's hilarious. I'm sure they didn't think it was hilarious.
Oh, they enjoyed the turkeys.
And are they far enough away from other neighbors that the neighbors weren't annoyed?
Chas was the closest one.
Okay.
I don't think he would hurt. Okay. Everybody's gonna go.
It's
find
not
out.
mine. Mine's parked at my house.
It's not mine.
Okay.
Stop.
Somebody push the right button.
It's you, Brett?
Mine, mine.
We found the culprit.
All right. Moving ahead then. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Let's see.
Make the motion that we approve the consent agenda and minutes from the May 11th meeting.
I'll second it.
Ms. Cookins and Turk, all in favor?
Aye.
It's everybody. We're rolling. Okay. It's like we don't have a lot on the agenda here, but is there anything there that involves a declaration of a conflict of interest? Anybody contemplated that? Is there anyone here who would like to address council on any item? We'd be glad to hear from you if you do. Cheryl's arriving. That's good to see. Okay, moving ahead. The only thing I have reports is just further encouragement for people to step up and run for office. We're gonna have some chairs up here needing filled in January, but you gotta, when is the period to file? Like the first week of June?
The first week of June, yep.
Okay.
It's just that 1 week for people to file. We'll be putting out more.
Let's make sure we're getting it out there and that people are aware. We don't want, I don't know what happens if there's not enough people to run, so the table's full, then the ones that are left start appointing.
I don't know if this is encouraging or discouraging, but we haven't received any calls asking questions about how to do that. So we'll see what comes of it. So.
Okay, well, I hope the word's out there and people know, because it's a short window. We need to make sure we got it covered. Any reports from council on
A
anything?
couple things.
planning and zoning, was it a week and a half ago, a couple things coming our way, I guess, but, we're still trying to hash out the ADUs, the accessory dwelling units, so can't quite come to a consensus there yet, but it's coming eventually, I think. And then, just to be aware, there's also gonna be, there's a piece of property here that, an owner wants to split into 2 properties, and that might require some zoning changes, is that right?
Yeah, just over here, there,
So,
basically where all those houses are, there's commercial zoning there. It's
On 100 West, right there.
Yeah, right behind your place, basically. So we just need to kind of reevaluate what to do.
Not a lot of land to split there.
there's not, that's, Rhett's got
Some of that
a letter
discussion.
coming, I think. But,
Okay,
and
well,
then, yeah, one
give
other
us the
thing.
research when we get there.
Yeah, one other thing, had a couple citizens come and ask about the stubs for natural gas. Want me to look into it. I done a little bit of that. Kim sent me a good email that talked about that, but I think you guys are kind of on that, right? You've got something in the works there too. So just,
Requesting stubs.
No,
No.
just about the base payment. if they're
Stats
not
of the
connected to
old
the
ones
system.
from way back.
Yeah, and we've got a couple, we recognize the, I guess, the concern, I guess, of residents who are paying that base rate for that stub. And so we're kind of looking at that and evaluating it. And hopefully we'll have some options for discussion.
Okay.
So,
Anything else from council? Seeing none. City manager, what do you got for us?
well, I've made all your wildest dreams come true, Mayor. We're gonna have a polling location here at Planning City. So.
Oh, not just mayors, that's all of us.
So you're talking like from now on?
At least this time, but I'm assuming we can probably work that, but it'll be a polling location, fully staffed by the county.
Yes.
Staff.
is it interpreter?
I don't know, I'll let that's up to them because they're staffing it, so.
There
but
was
I
some
assume
question
so.
as to whether that would be a legal requirement because of the location. And so that might make it easier if it's not. But
So, we contract with the county and my understanding is they have the staff to provide whatever services are required. And if not, I guess we'll have to take that up with them, but they seem happy to do that. Similarly, you probably got an email from Kim about what do we call it, a cleanup day. The county has agreed to do that as well. So some positive things there. The baseball infield dirt, there's a little bit of clarification, I guess. We met with Jimmy and David Palmer and I met with Jimmy. And we kind of talked about, well, how he'd mentioned that there were donations and things and people who could donate contract services like trucking and things. I was under the impression that those were current commitments when those letters were all written when I first got here, but he said those commitments were from more than a year ago. So he's not sure that they're still committed to do that. So kind of where we're at is there was a grant that David Palmer applied for to do the infield dirt. And we're going to see where that's at. And then if we get that, then we can use that funding obviously to move forward. If we don't get that, then we'll work with Jimmy and he'll try to reach out to some of those prior commitments that he had before, see what we have, then come to the council with where are we at and let you decide how you want to move forward from there. So the other thing that,
Sorry,
go
are we
ahead.
setting deadlines and timeframes?
Right now, the current deadline is when we hear back from the grant. And then once we hear back from the grant, then we'll talk to him about, hey, by this time, let's see what commitments you have so that we could take it to the council. We just,
You know when the grant is?
they said sometime in May.
It's supposed to be a
Yeah.
decision by the end of this month.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're trying to follow up because we still haven't heard anything yet. And it's almost the end of the month. So yeah, then from there, we'll meet with him again and we'll try to, create some deadlines of, hey, let's see what we can get by this time. And then we'll take it to the council based on where we're at and let you guys decide it as a body. Another thing that I don't have listed here, and I just kind of try to list some of the reports. I don't really have to, there's no requirement to list reports, but I think it's nice so you kind of know some things. But one other thing that's come up is our city personnel policy. We can't hire anyone under 16 years old. And most cities, and we did some follow-up, but most cities hire 14-year-olds for like reffing games, 15-year-olds for lifeguarding. Because it's easier to, actually, ironically, it's easier to commit those younger 14 and 15-year-olds than the 16-year-olds. You might get a 16-year-old for a year and then they're off graduating in the next year or whatever. But so what I'm looking to do is just coming back to the council to present to you a personnel policy change that allows us to hire 14-year-olds for like reffing, allows us to hire 15-year-olds for lifeguarding, which the American Red Cross will certify 15-year-olds. It'll just give us more ability to hire more people and those young kids looking for good jobs. So unless there's any qualms with that, we'll hopefully in the next couple weeks.
I'm actually surprised that's in there. 14, 15-year-olds need to be reffing games.
Yeah, I
agree. I
agree.
think it's good.
Yeah. I think a lot of us, I mean, I know I was working at 14 years old.
Well, my grandson waiting to turn 16 so he can apply for a lifeguard job.
Yeah,
It's
well,
like June
hopefully
1st.
hopefully we can actually get that changed in the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping by the next meeting, we can bring that policy change to you. And then those who are 15 years old who are certified can become lifeguards right away, because even this weekend, we may potentially only be partially open on Saturdays so that the lifeguards currently in training can finish their training in time for Monday. So,
Would we
Yeah.
consider doing another training if we had enough interest from 15? Okay.
yeah, for sure.
Because I don't know how you're going to do camp week when
Right.
when all the young men and all the young women go out of town.
All of our eggs have been in the basket of Linda Larson.
Yeah.
Used to be.
Yeah.
Swenson, but she has been so good because she's the only one around here who can train them, and we've been at her mercy, and she has gone out of our way to work weird schedules to try to get these people
Nice.
qualified. She's been an angel to us down there lately. So
Yeah, we send her a thing.
And on that note too, I mean, David this morning's in his swim trunks and a t-shirt lifeguarding himself and changing back. And so, so he's definitely filling in the parts until we can. So I just want to acknowledge his efforts with that. But I think as far as reports were concerned, those were the main things that I had. So.
Okay, moving on. Kim Palmer, accounts payable and invoice register.
Any questions about?
Is there anything of
the
note?
registers in there? Not really.
There's not much in there this time. Any questions from council? Okay, Public Works project status. Mary Ecker.
You have those slides available, David, I can tell you power.
That is a great question. And that would be a no. Let me see if I can email them.
Right, let's talk a little bit. The project status report should be in the packet up on the screen. If we can switch one page from there we go. Best water, you should be there. I don't know why we have not received a signed copy of the agreement back from NTUAs, but we haven't. So I reached out to them twice, and they assured me that was forthcoming in the very near future.
They're a large bureaucracy.
They are.
You gotta have
Heard
the
they
right
had maybe a
phone
little bit of
number.
COVID going on down there. And maybe that's left them short-staffed. I know they had some linemen that work for them got hurt. And so I don't know if they're just super busy with some of that. But for whatever reason, we haven't got that going. So as soon as we get that signed, we'll have the mayor execute it, and we'll get going on an agreement with ICP to do the design work and get an updated schedule so we kind of know where we're predicting to be. But right now we'd be looking at probably January if NTU would get that, we could have power out there by then, I think. So questions on wastewater and the power. Metal Arc subdivision, if you've been down there, the road's rough enough that you slow down and look anyway. So we've got that going. Or Joe
That's a bonus.
has that going for him, right? Good or bad. All of the water sewer is done. All of the electrical conduit is put in. The conductors aren't in, transformers aren't there. The electrical industry is having a hard time getting flagging all around them. The transformers, on that conduit yet, so they're moving along that way. City crews are down there installing gas. And so the utility work's coming along nicely. They should be ready to start concrete pretty soon.
Are they gonna, have they sold any lots?
I
You
don't
know?
know.
But they're putting in some of their own units.
Yeah, they're planning on doing that. Joe reached out to me today asking for
Sorry, is this the slide that see?
Yep, got it, yep. Yeah, Joe reached out to have me get him some information on impact and connection fees for all the utilities on those, so he's thinking about that. Any questions on that, Laura? The risk and resilience assessment for our water, just barely started getting into that this week. Looks like it shouldn't be too terrible, but, and the drinking water emergency response plan kind of goes hand in hand with that, so hoping to get a few days in on that, and we should be able to get those completed. Questions there? Street maintenance project with all everything else we've had going, we just haven't really got there to get that all put together. So it'll probably be, 2022 construction season. And then I was going to talk a little bit on UAMPS. Dave's got these slides pulled up. These were slides that were for something else, but if we go through there, let's go to the next slide. It'll just give us some talking points. Let's go. So back to the subscription one, maybe. I don't know where we're at. Are we on the? Okay. Yeah, that one. So UAMPS is working a whole bunch with other entities to get subscription to the project. Most of that's happening just because of transmission and the way it works in the West, in Arizona and in Washington. Well, really Pacific Northwest. There are several that have signed letters of intent, and then we have other cities who backed out of, that are members of UAMPS that were in the carbon-free power project that backed out are now wanting back in. So that was a costly decision apparently, but that's what we're hearing. It looks like it'll be a 6-pack. Maybe let's click to the next slide.
Their terms are less favorable coming back, right? I mean, they don't get the grandfather to their position they had before.
Yeah, when we get to the end of this cycle, if the estimates aren't such that the lowest cost of energy will be 55 megawatts or lower, we can get out of the contract without paying a dime. And all those guys who exited early had to pay for everything that had been spent on their behalf up to that point.
So do you know who's looking to get back in?
I don't, it kept that pretty quiet.
So the reason why I'm asking who, so I think this is a great project, but up north, there were several cities, Lehigh, Bountiful, others that were really touting this project up there who were UAMPS members. And when I came down here, I called a few of them to say, hey, tell me a little bit more about this. And all the ones that I knew of had all dropped out. And they talked about how the risk was too much. They were supposed to get more members to come on, like 60, but they were only able to get a couple, I guess. And so there is genuine concern to keep an eye out. I still like this project. I think it's good, but where they went from, what was it originally, Terry? 12, what's the term? 12 of the units.
Yeah.
12 of the units, they tapered down to 8, and now they've tapered down to 6. And then with rising costs, so I'm just trying to keep a cautious eye and a hopeful one, an optimistic one, but I still just don't want to be blind to maybe what others.
They're also, I mean, there has been that concern of how much is getting, how much is being subscribed in and who's buying in. And that's always kind of been there, but there's so many safeguards in it, and mostly they were politically knee-jerked.
Yeah.
They got scared by the propaganda in opposition, and now they're realizing that it was a bunch of fluff that was thrown in their face, and they sneezed.
Yeah, in the reality with Clean Energy Act that's coming and everything, most municipals are going to have all 100% clean energy portfolio by 2050, possibly earlier, and that'll mean
The main reason why I bring it up is with all the city managers that
Base load power.
with all the city managers that I spoke to, it had nothing to do with any kind of political information. It had everything to do with the level of risk is why they pulled out. That's what it was based on.
This happened to come on the tail of a whole bunch of political outcry.
It was there for
They
seven.
they reassessed their
There are
financial
many who didn't pull
situation
out, too.
just a week after all of the propaganda.
I meant subscribers. That's what they mostly went into. They were concerned that they were looking to get 60 subscribers and only got 1 or 2 within the deadline timeframe. That's what raised, from a staff perspective, eyebrows. Now, as far as elected officials, maybe that might be true, but as far as my peers are concerned, it was a different story. So, again, I don't want to say I'm optimistic with this, but I don't want to go in blind to some of the concerns that are there. So
There's risk. So just the development coordination agreement, that's the one that is UAMPS. And so what happens really when there's subscription to this project, they can have on the bottom line, it talks about power sales contract, power purchase agreement, or a project participant. So that's the 3 options. We're project participants, but these other entities could come in on a power sales contract basis or a power purchase agreement. And so there's different ways for these utilities to get subscription on this project. Let's go to the next slide. So there's a coordinating committee that they have, and I don't even really fully understand how all that works, but this is a lot of the budgetary stuff and on the lowest cost of energy, the LCOE. So let's keep moving. So they've got the core boring and well drilling preparations are completed, so they're getting ready to start that up there. And so that's all of your geotechnical investigations. They're going to have to happen. You know, a large portion of this plant is underground. The biological and cultural surveys are completed, and there's not too much concern there. Geotechnical walkdowns, which is really just another part of the core boring to look at the site. The mowing has all been completed, so they've done is gone in there and mowed all the brush. And my understanding is that's sage grouse stuff. They can't nest if there's not brush. So get rid of the brush, and then you don't have an endangered species messing with your project. So that's been a big thing they had to do before nesting season started, and that's done. So now they'll move into the geotechnical drilling. Let's go to the next slide. Operator due diligence. So that's one of the things that's kind of coming up in the estimates for the cost of the energy is how much will it actually cost to operate. And so you guys have been working with Excel Energy. They're the likely operator to operate the plant after it's constructed. And some of the estimates, there's a little bit of discrepancy between the design folks' estimates and Excel's. So they're working a little bit harder to get those costs nailed down and make sure that they're in the right range. Next slide. Department of Energy, they're in meetings with those guys all the time, you know, and that's where that 1.35 billion comes from. So we've got to keep them happy to make the project go. And the funding, the way I understand it, the cost sharing is that 1.35 billion, and then the DOE also guarantees a loan, and the spending of that money can't happen simultaneously. So we've got the project has to be structured so that all the cost sharing award is spent before they start spending debt. So that's just something to be aware of on the funding. Next slide. New scale. So we're looking pretty much at that, like Dave said, at the 6-pack configuration. The target price is 55 megawatts per hour. They're about $1 below that right now on cost estimates. So it's fairly tight, and there's some variables still that they're looking at trying to nail down to make sure.
I assume if they go with 6, I assume they're building the infrastructure so they can throw another 6 on
No, it's not expandable.
It doesn't work that way, huh?
It doesn't work that way. No, so, you know, of course, that reduces a lot of the risk on the subscription end of it. And they have additional negotiations.
Well, I'm curious about that because it seemed like there's I mean, you've got an overhead to support this thing. And if you're running 6 reactors versus 12, the overhead's probably not all that much different. So I mean, I don't know. I don't see their engineering it or anything, but it just
Certainly there'd be some cost savings.
it seems like they're doing some cost savings here, but maybe the overhead cost is the greater number. Maybe it's not.
Yeah. So the next steps on this thing, project management committee will make a conditional decision on the configuration. So that decision's never been made, whether it's 6, 8, or 12. You know, and so that's still a little bit in flux, although, you know, UAMPS is looking at the 6, and that's probably the way we're headed. And that's conditioned on the governing body feedback, which you guys play a role in that. And then, so we'll have more information coming soon on this in the next couple months. I think, is that the last one, Dave?
I think so.
Just a couple other projects that we're involved in on Horse Butte 2. We've signed up to be a part of that project. And that's a new phase in the Horse Butte Wind Farm up there in Idaho. And some questions have come up with respect to repowering. And you know, you guys are familiar with these big wind turbines. With technology advancing since Horse Butte 1 was built, they're now making those turbines with longer blades. And so there's some, you can create more energy with longer blades. So now they've kind of slowed the Horse Butte 2 project down and make sure that they're looking at the right turbines so that we get the best bang for our buck on power production. And then they're also looking at repowering or changing the turbines on Horse Butte 1. And so, you know, we could get more megawatts for a lower price. So that's kind of where that one's at. And then Muddy Creek is the, it's up in near Cameron, Wyoming, but that's the heat recovery, or, you know, when they compress natural gas to push it down the pipeline, a lot of waste heat's created, and they use that waste heat to generate electricity.
I forgot all about that one. That was really cool.
So it's still moving full steam ahead. Kern River Pipeline, of course, wants more money for this one than the Vail project that was also done on their
Glad you
pipeline.
were with that. The heat recovery project is moving full steam ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, I did. I don't have to. I'm not that witty. So, yeah, that project, they've been working with the landowner. There's still some environmental to do. There's about 2 miles of transmission line that will have to be constructed on BLM land. And so we have to have environmental assessments and everything to construct that. That part is happening. And then the Still Solar is the solar project that we're involved in that's up in Brigham City. And so that project is moving on schedule, and you have to really have any updates on that project this month.
Is Horse Butte the one that's strung out along the freeway toward Boise?
No,
That's different.
no, it's near Idaho Falls, and it's back to the east.
On the other side.
Yeah, kind of towards the Wyoming line from Idaho Falls.
Okay.
I haven't been there, so I don't know exactly where it's at. That general area.
Okay,
Any questions?
thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Well, what's this? What do we have on airport? Brett, something new and amazing and wonderful that
Even newer since that report.
Yeah. So if you notice that report, I put in red kind of the changes that we knew at the point when we were putting the packet together for city council. And we've got new information as of this morning. They had a second supplier for equipment identify that they could provide the weather equipment for the AWAS at a significant reduction of about $65,000. And so what we're looking at now, if everything pans out, They've got to make sure the FAA buys off on it and the state aeronautics division buys off on it. If both of those entities buy off on it, that our airport consultants will be giving us a recommendation letter to proceed with the project. We'd be able to finish it this year, and it would be 100% funded by the FAA. As part of that, we'll have to turn in a letter stating that if the FAA doesn't have their prices too high, that we would be willing to turn that AWAS back over to them for them to operate. That's subject to the ongoing costs or the initial upfront costs that they might submit to us. Is there any questions in regards to this project? So it sounded a lot better than it did 4 or 5 days ago.
Let me just add real quick. So the initial cost came in like $100,000 more. The FAA basically said, we can't do that. And then they came back and said, well, if we split it up over 2 years. And then we were able to find this other supplier. So the cost is brought back down to almost, still a little bit higher, but almost to about what our original projections were. And that's why we should be able to cover it.
And if the FAA takes it over, then will they pay those annual maintenance costs, or will they still expect that from us?
That's still debatable. We don't know that yet. They originally, we were being told when we went to our meetings with them that it was going to be little or no cost. And the latest, one of the ups and downs that we got on this roller coaster was that it could be 100 to 300,000 upfront that they want up front. So if that's the case, then the city would back out and continue to maintain it ourselves, like we originally reported to you, for about $6,000 a year.
So it's looking like we can move forward though. And,
Yeah.
and when he says roller coaster, Brett really has been on a roller coaster. Like he'll come in the morning and say, this is the update I got. Come in the afternoon and say, I just got more news. I guess we're going back this way. And so Brett's really, he's put a lot of good effort into this, and it's kind of distracted from some of the other responsibilities that he has, but I appreciate all that he's done on
He's
this.
been pretty involved for the last week and a half.
Yeah.
But right now we're having good news and we're heading in the right direction. So is there any questions?
How's the FBO operator doing?
That view.
The FBOs are doing great, but we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. We're working on some stuff. Our equipment's working down there, but we probably need to find some new equipment.
Or
Like gas?
The pump
fuel?
that does the avgas is rated at 20 gallons a minute. And they complained and said something was wrong with it. And as I researched it, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's really slow. David Red confirmed that today. And I don't know what the industry standard is. That's what we're trying to research to see where it's at. But people that have big fancy jet planes don't like to wait a long time to get their planes fueled. So we're exploring that to see what our options are.
So they're down there and they're operating, they're fueling airplanes. They have a.
They're fueling airplanes
down
during the
there.
day. They're fueling the airplanes in the middle of the night. We're getting a lot of activity. We had a jet come in today. We have 2 big helicopters parked down there right now. So there's been quite a bit of activity at the airport this spring already.
Good. Is there a courtesy car down there? Are they
2.
providing that too?
They're not.
They're not, the
is.
city is still?
They're the ones that keep track of the keys and who's got them and stuff. But
Do they both still look like the kind of car you pull over?
we have that old police car,
Passes inspection.
and that thing is a tank, but it
For
starts.
reasons that we won't discuss, they just happen to get pulled over.
And the other smaller gray car that we have is we spent some money on this last fall and we got them all working, so they're up and going. The windows go up and down, and we're pretty
That's all that
excited.
really
Let's
matters.
see. You just have to go like this to get them up and down.
No,
Does it help with your workload? Does it help with your stress level? Have them there?
not yet.
Not yet. You see it. See it.
But they are
coming
taking
along?
the calls for fuel, and they are taking the calls for the courtesy cars. And so that aspect of it has been less, but I don't know if it's the 20-year itch or what, but almost everything that could break down at the airport has broke down or is breaking down. So that's kind of crazy, but
He's still getting calls like related to the old AWAS system and other things like that in the middle of the night. That's why this AWAS system will be nice. As far as breaking down, it's a little off topic, but with the airport, we had the insurance adjuster, Brian, and I actually went and looked at different buildings. He did most of the buildings, but I went to the airport and did all the airport buildings with him from the hail damage last year. And we found damage that clearly wasn't accounted for, pretty obvious on vents, and the gutters are already old, but clearly hammered more by a hailstorm with large
I
hail.
appreciate you following that. I told you, right?
So the adjuster's coming.
That's good.
We're getting the roof actually replaced on City Hall, which they didn't do in the first place. Some things at the visitor center, the wellness center, he's going to look at all these, but definitely the airport. I mean, we've got 5 buildings over there, and every vent was dinged up. And like Brian said, unless someone came out here with a BB gun on top of the roof, it probably was hell. And the gutters have like holes in them, they're shredded down. I just don't see how they, clearly there was weathering before, and the hail obviously did more damage. So on that 20-year itch, that's what made me think of that. So we'll, this month or this upcoming month, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be looking at that too.
you're all invited. If you want to go on a field trip sometime, you're welcome to come down. We can look the place over.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Signage on the crosswalk thing. I think this is, this fall into you, Terry.
Yeah, his name next to it, not mine.
Well, just a preemptively in the discussion, I just, sometimes I see the cost on some of these things. And I think, do these things cost what they do because they know the governments are their primary buyers? And therefore they make a killing. I'm always suspicious of someone, because I look at what's there, and I think some of your ideas are fantastic for helping that situation over there. But I'm dumbfounded by the costs. I just think, I don't see what is there that makes it cost that much. So
I mean, there's radios to communicate both sides of the street, solar panels, electronic gadgets, and some high intensity lights. I don't know.
Plus they got to pay Terry to flip a sign on the corner.
maybe it legitimately all ends up that high, but I'm always a little suspicious when
and we could,
governments
you know,
are the
obviously
primary buyers.
This is something we were really interested in. We could look for quotes from other vendors
Mhm.
on that. So.
I like the ideas a lot, so.
They have that decorative pole right there, and I thought, well, yeah, we don't need that. And then you look at the cost, and it's not really too much compared to everything else. And so probably the decorative pole is nice. You know, we could put it on just regular street poles or the street sign poles that we always have, you know, stop signs and that. I mean, that pole's what, 100?
Yeah, it's not, let's see. Zoom in here.
And so would one face east and one would face west?
It should be right where very close to where the signs are now that show, you know, right at the crosswalk. You have the advanced warning crosswalk sign, then you have the sign right at the crosswalk.
Really, the cost is in the solar, it looks like, right? Am I reading that wrong, Terry?
Well, that's all the electronics, the battery, the solar, that's the whole shooting match minus the pole, radios. So that is the RRFB. And the rest is just the accessories to stand it up. It does look like they have the LED audible activation button which was an option. You know, we wouldn't necessarily have to do that. That looks like the button you push is lit up, and then it must beep once you've pushed it. So you know you've pushed it, I guess.
As opposed to just seeing that the lights
As
are
opposed to
flashing.
just a button, you hit it and those lights start flashing, which should be readily apparent that you've got it actuated. But
Well,
anyway,
I do have to say, because of my day job, it would be nice to have an audible button. You know, because we're a small enough city that we don't have a way for someone who's visually impaired to cross the street without someone with them. And I mean, they still would kind of need that, but gives them,
Oh, as far as just the tone that says, yes,
Yes.
I'm working. Oh, I
it
see
gives
what
them
you
a
mean.
little bit more of a sense of independence at one of our, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that option is relatively low cost
Do
comparatively.
you know if that can be added to the UDOT project here? If they'll add something like that, an audible crosswalk? Basically, that's what you're saying when they cross
It's like
the
Salt Lake,
intersection. You
but
know,
the beach.
I guess I would assume it is, and
Okay.
we could ask about that, where we're not gonna actually have a signal there. I don't know if they do those on a
Oh,
four-way
I see
stop,
what you're
so
saying.
we can
Yeah.
ask, certainly.
I would bet the answer's no.
Well, yeah,
Never
it would-
hurts to
it
ask.
wouldn't know what you're signaling, because
Yeah.
it's not gonna stop traffic, because there isn't a
Yeah.
controlled stop.
This is something council would like us to look into. I mean, I think this is a far better option than, I mean, we don't really want another stop sign 1 block west of the last.
I didn't
stop
know
sign.
that this was even an option, and I
I
think
didn't
it's
either.
pretty
I think it's
cool.
better than the flag.
Actually, a few cities that I've been in have had these just from running.
Yeah.
And those are so awesome because cars in, not even at intersections, will just stop straight in the middle of the road when they see those blinking. They're really effective from my experience.
Would you mind just
I'd say
telling
look
me
into
again, so I was confused obviously about where these were gonna go.
Yeah.
It's not for here, it's for here.
No, it's
Right.
not.
It's here right there.
Yeah.
This
Oh.
Castle corner.
Absolutely.
The school community council's been concerned about the students that are
That's
crossing that.
okay, that makes more sense to me than putting them
When
right
we
here on
came
Main
over a year
Street.
ago
I
to the
would-
city about it.
Not that I don't think they'd work good there too, but like there's 4-way stop, why do I
Yeah,
gotcha.
and this is, I
Okay.
mean, relatively low cost compared to the headache of a crossing guard.
Yep.
And then you still have to have all the flashing lights for a reduced speed school zone
And a warrant.
and a warrant.
So what does
we
the
don't
crossing
have?
guard cost us?
Cam, do you have any idea? In headaches or in?
Oh, no.
cash?
Hey now.
Probably more than what this is.
Yeah, so.
And it's tough for those folks
Annually.
because they're not
This is
highly
annually,
compensated. So
yeah.
when something comes up last minute, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna do my thing that I need to take care of rather than,
Right.
and so it is. It's just a tough position to fill.
I was
Okay,
surprised
well-
in the numbers. There didn't seem like he had seen that many kids. I thought there's a lot more that crossed right there, but.
Yeah, 16 to 18, JJ spent 2 afternoons there, which we have more kids in the afternoon than morning for sure. And they were fairly warm days, but I would imagine there are times when it's higher.
Hmm.
And, we even have the elementary kids, when they go to some of these schools, they come this way and then go to the 4-way because it's safer when the teachers are with them and possibly they could use that as an alternate route. So
Good work.
I'll look into what we have. I'll have Kim help me and kind of see what we have for budget. Because we didn't budget for these and we're about to approve a budget, I think. And so I'm sure we could probably find somewhere that we can get some additional quotes and possibly we have some money in our signed budget even for this fiscal year. And we could get those, we'd obviously like to have them before school starts.
Yeah.
Well, the
That'd be
council
awesome.
has discretionary funds as well.
I know, let's use the city council funds if we
Well,
have.
that we
we
don't
have to.
use
Yeah.
them very often. That seems like a good.
Yeah, okay.
good
I'm
option.
sure there's a few options.
I also, after watching the video, I do agree though that it's going to take community education as well, because we don't want them to sit there and then be a waste of dollars and not be used. We want people to know they're there and what they're for, and the community to know what that light means and all the good things. So it will take community education, but
Well, and
good.
Logan sits on the community council, so he
Oh,
could
good.
push that education piece at back to school night and maybe through some other activities.
And we would put stuff on Facebook.
Yeah,
That'd be
true.
great.
Yeah.
Education going through the elementary school to the parents directly has always been the best way
I agree.
to educate. Because it's those 18 to 25, kids that are crossing there on the daily basis that them and their parents that really need to understand, and their parents can, we'd probably want to try and get it up there at least a week before school so parents could walk with the students, and test it out and get a little bit of a
Maybe they
comfort.
could go on a field trip down there with the kids. Yeah.
Has there been any discussion with the school district on helping fund it maybe?
No, there hasn't. We could also reach out to them.
Then it doesn't hurt to ask.
Let's not slow the
was gonna
process
say.
down by adding another government layer. No.
I agree.
I think it slows it down at all. still get them.
Who do I talk to, Katie?
Well, that's the challenge. There is not a business manager until July 1st. So.
Perfect time to get.
Yeah, get someone who doesn't really know.
Well, there is.
Okay.
You could talk to Superintendent Nelson. He's kind of part of the acting business manager.
Okay.
Because we want to investigate this and we'll see what the options are, and we're moving ahead regardless. It doesn't hurt to ask them.
Yeah.
So if they want to participate in it, it would help.
Okay.
Okay,
Thanks, Terry.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, really.
Sorry, can we, do we need to set any timelines, or we just want to, can we keep this on the agenda so that we can make sure we're following up and we're seeing the progress get done?
Yeah, we'll bring you updates as we get them. So I think just Terry, what do you feel like is a reasonable time to come back with any new updates? And,
On this,
yeah.
I guess when we have an update, soon.
Once school starts with the
Is it-
19th of August.
Is it possible to keep things on the agenda? Something like this, or like the baseball field dirt, so that we don't forget for 4 months and nothing gets done? Is that a possible, is that possible?
I mean, you could.
In business, that's what you do when you have an open item that's not being.
I mean, I have, behind the scenes, I have a running list of things to keep in the queue, if that makes sense, but
So
I've never-
if we, before the next meeting, had some feedback from some other vendors, then we would be.
yeah, that's kind of what the reports time is for. So if we have
I
feedback.
just have it on the agenda is really nice for me, because then I remember, oh, hey, that's an item that we're working on, we need to follow up with. So it would be nice if these things could stay on the agenda till they're completed.
That's an interesting thought.
My
because it would
hesitation
be
was-
something similar, but not an agenda item like, I know you're
Not
concerned.
an
about
action
it,
item.
But to make it, kind of like the project status thing, it's just there for information, say, oh, so we've got the list of, these are the things we have our eyes on.
That Terry.
You know what I
Maybe, I don't
might
know,
work for
it's an
that.
idea.
would be a shared Google Doc that lists the things that are kind of
Interesting idea.
Yeah,
priorities.
the other thing I was gonna say is that's kind of, I think, what the project status report is, but yeah, I mean, we could do a good shared
If it
Google
stays on the
Doc.
project status
Yeah.
report, that's fine too.
Yeah, that's
long
more
as
what
it's
I
in
was
here.
thinking.
As long as we can see it in a meeting, we get a reminder about it.
I'm thinking the project status report because honestly, there's well, I know there are things, there's things
It's
that
always
we've been
like
working
the
on
big
for
deals, but
30 years, and trying to do a land swap and stuff. And so I'm just afraid a list like that would get, definitely for the agenda, could become too cumbersome. But yeah,
Do the council members see the project status reports? that are
in the
not-
meetings, but let's, Terry and I and staff, we can talk at our staff meeting, kind of maybe brainstorm an idea of how we can put projects on there and kind of where they're at.
Because that reminds me of, we talked about what we want to do at Central Park. And at next meeting, it would be nice to get an update on if we've gotten anywhere with that. I have had people talk to me about, are we going to ever do pickleball back there, and that's been years also that people have asked.
So we did budget for the pavilion at
Okay.
Central Park for next year's
Okay,
budget. As soon as that gets passed, then we should start moving forward on getting those bids and stuff
Yeah.
together on those things.
that's helpful. Thank you.
But yes, let's kind of brainstorm. The only other thing that, I'm sorry, this is very city manager-ish of me, but I'm worried about the Google Doc unintentionally creating a
Dialogue.
a dialogue unintentionally. So those are kind of the things that I'm thinking through in the back of my head. So we can talk as staff. I mean, I've got a list of things. I know staff each have their own list of things.
So I'm just asking
The
for the lights and the dirt on the infield, and maybe there's other things, but I just know in business, there's an agenda, and the items that are open that haven't been completed stay on there, so that every meeting there's follow through and follow up and accountability to those items.
The open to-do list.
I would maybe even add the visitor center to that list, but
Okay.
if there's a way to do that and put it in the minutes where we can see it, that'd be great.
Yes. I agree.
Or put it as a agenda, not an agenda item, but a
in the
informational
project
item, project status. There you
The
go.
only caveat I would say is just, sometimes things can take 2 months, as long as you understand that that is the case on some
The
things.
project
like-
status, that's what,
Yeah,
a lot
right,
of times nothing
exactly.
happens
It's
on
still
that
where it's
project.
at.
But it
Because
is-
like the visitor center is a great example.
just
That's
brings it
something
up.
that the signs have just been taking
But this
forever
thing
to
should be able
get.
to move fairly quickly if we get going on it.
Yeah, I think
Just get
so.
here.
So it sound like kind of explore the idea, but I like the idea of expanding that project status thing, so there's a little more stuff included, so we just know.
It sounds like you're wanting just an update.
Right, or
Things happening.
even if nothing happened for the next meeting, if it's on there and it reminds us, okay,
This is where
yeah,
it's
this
at.
is where it's at.
Mhm.
And nothing happened over the last 2 weeks. Okay, at least then the council is making,
Right.
knows where things are at and we don't forget, which
Especially
last year
like the-
tended to happen during, part of that was COVID, but it just, things got undone.
I'm actually
Get done.
sorry, I'm thinking out loud. I think some of the best things maybe to put on there are that year's capital projects. Probably be a
yeah.
good one. That would make
Like the
sense.
shade structures, yeah.
Yes,
that'd be
these are
awesome.
what we've budgeted for this year. These are the main projects. And then if there's little one-offs like the crossing, then we could add those on. But yeah.
Yeah, so it wouldn't
I
take a
think
lot of
so.
work, just adding them and then if there's small updates, updating them.
Yeah, and then that way, the things that have been ongoing for the last 10 years or
Yeah, that-
3 years, not necessarily those, but
Right.
we'll
Just
think
like
through
Terry
more.
does, it's perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, sounds good.
I like it,
Thank you.
good idea. Okay, moving on to the budget adoption resolution. If that's got your name on it.
You should say, I'll accept a motion. That's what you should say.
Yeah, I'll accept the motion. It's there, it's concise, it's conservative, it's typical of what we've done in the past, with the exception of the CARES Act dollars. They're included in there. I think it's a good budget, worked hard,
Good job.
it's ready for your okay,
Good job.
stamp of approval.
Okay.
She'll accept a
So I'll
motion.
make a motion that we accept
Like
the
where's
this
the
resolution right here.
Yeah.
Okay, resolution 5/25/2021-01, adopting the 2021-2022 fiscal budget.
I'll second it.
Okay, so the motion is to adopt the budget as it stands by Turk and Bowers. Any other questions or discussion on the motion? We've been discussing it at great length for some time.
Yes.
So I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's everybody.
If you have time, give Kim a good pat on the back. She dealt with a brand new city manager asking a lot of questions and the budget and delay in the budget. And she really hammered it out. So it's very great.
I knew she could do it.
She's good.
Good job,
No
Kim.
doubt, I have no doubt. I know of no reason for an executive session that I'm aware of, unless somebody surprises us with one.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay,